hours.
That is our worst.
So, hello everybody. This week, we have the opportunity to do research on organizational development. I myself like to focus on change management. So, this physical object that I gave you all in the corner represents something. Today we're going to talk about change, but not exactly that change. Okay? We're going to talk about change management. Today, an outlook of today, we will talk about what is change management. Why change management? Who makes the change? And we'll talk about different changes in organizations today. So, what is change management? Change management includes the tools, the techniques, and the processes of organizations' desired outcome. Something like statistics, measuring, teamwork making the dream work, motivation, improving, organizing, planning. So, here's a small video.
Meet David. David's the CEO of a big company. David's company is growing fast, very fast. And to maintain a competitive edge in an era of hyper competition, David plans to introduce a change in the way he's doing business. Any good leader knows that the only thing that's constant is change. Changes both within and outside the organization. Mergers, acquisitions, adopting new practices, upgrading technology. All of these are inevitable. David's decided to implement ERP to manage critical functions like sales, finance, and human resources. But how are these changes going to affect the average employee? Someone like Sam, for instance. Meet Sam. Sam's an accountant. He's great with numbers. What he's not so great at is handling unpredictability. He's worried about how he will manage with the ERP system. Will he be trained properly and on time? Will the new system be launched at one go? Will the timeline of these changes be communicated to him? Sam's too anxious to focus on work. He misses deadlines. His customers are unhappy. He's so apprehensive and stressed that he quits. Now imagine the same situation with every employee of the organization. Not just Sam from accounts, but Bobby from sales and Ann from HR too. That's a lot of uncertain people stressing out about the ERP with no clear communication, worrying about changes that could have been handled better. Morale drops, attrition increases, deadlines are missed, quality falls. Customers are complaining, the company suffers. Now you know why David's nervous.
So, is it safe to say that leaders help make change? Is it safe to say that the only thing that is constant is change? Leaders adapt most of that. So, as we learned in the 1980s, McCall came with the concept of the 70-20-10 model. 70% of leaders within professional development come from experience. 20% come from being sociable. 10% academics. So, certain shifts and changes that happen within organizations today, from Vandy Van in the articles this week, as well as Poole in 1995, came with another four change method that occurs in organizations. And the first one is plan. Plan change occurs, for an example, would be everyone knows St. Louis Rams. They came to Los Angeles. That is a goal consensus. That is planned. The whole organization knew what was going on. They were ready for this change. Another one is regulated change. Regulated change happens within nature, logic, policy, or rules within the organization. When those happens, that's a regulated change. We're all aware of it. Conflictive change happens when there's a conflict between opposing forces within an organization. Competitive change, scarce resources, it's not a lot. So, leaders today, a good leader would use one of three or all or even more of these strategies for change management. Change management changes work results. Everybody loves incentives. Propose an incentive. I love gifts. Christmas, right around the corner. Shifts the burden of change. Nobody likes change. Nobody. My grandma hates change. She barely made Facebook. It's terrible. Emphasize inclusive and collaborative relationships. So, studies show that when someone feels left out, it's the same feeling that they get when they're in pain. I don't like to be in pain. I don't like to get dumped. Okay? So, I like to leave you all with this verbal gift. Change before you have to. Jack Welch. Thank you. So, what I think I did well, I think I had great vocals. I moved around a lot. I got you guys engaged. I felt like I seen a lot of happy smiles and faces, so you guys kind of enjoyed the presentation. What will I do next time? I'll move around, move my hands, give you more detail. I'll give you more information, give you something that you can apply in the real world, even more. Pick 3 people to give you feedback. Let's go hard with Mr. Mark, Mr. Tim, and Mr. George. I wanted to add you 2, James. You know, you go ahead.
I'm glad to be in that group.
Hey, Bodie.
All right, Mark, you first.
Oh, okay, wow. So, I like the way you start with a pun. Yeah, but you didn't give every one of us attention. Yeah, why?
I got a penny money.
I did not, but yeah, but yeah, but I see what you did there, that's a very clever way, clever way to start the presentation. It seems like you enjoy being on this stage, open stage. Yeah, because I see passion in your presentation. And you do have strong vocals. Yes. And that reflects your how confident you seem to be. I'm not sure if you're that confident, but you seem confident. Yeah. And one little suggestion is that the video resolution could be high.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't know, 140 or 240. But overall, yeah.
Great. Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you're a good speaker. I really enjoyed your flow up there, and you moved naturally, I thought, and that was like my initial impression of the whole thing was you're a good speaker. I felt like the video was a little long, and one thing, I don't know if everyone else knows this either, but you can change the animation of that, and it'll actually advance on click if you embed it in your PowerPoint. So you can just click it and it'll play a video, and then you can advance to the next slide. So that can help you show professionally, not have to do that back and forth. Another thing I noticed was there's a few Canva watermark images on your presentation, and like I wouldn't do that if, well, yeah, I just wouldn't do that, but like that could maybe derail it if you're in front of an executive. And I like the change puns. I like you made me laugh a lot. Similar to Mark, I was like a little mad that I didn't get a penny. But I thought maybe you'd go somewhere with it, and then you didn't, so I'm still mad. But overall, really good presentation.
Thanks.
Yeah, you have great presence. It's really comfortable up there. Really good power in your tone. Your back jokes. It seemed like you're not like afraid, you're not uncomfortable. Also, the way that you broke down change management was really easy to follow. It was engaging. Personally, I thought the video was like kind of a little long. I kind of like zoned out a little bit. And two, it was like obvious that after the video, it seemed like you had to warm up a little bit. You had a really, really strong intro. Video happened. It seemed like a decline in your enthusiasm and energy. And then I saw you rolling after you started like running down the hill and getting momentum. And then two, like you look back a lot. I don't know if you noticed that. You look back a lot, and then I think that hindered your the like consistency with your words, because I can tell like you look back, you kind of think about what you had to say, and you go. But overall, fantastic. A lot of energy, a lot of engaging intangibles. And then again, I thought your content was great, and the way you broke it down, easy to follow, and really like I could understand what you're talking about.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I'm curious about the penny. The joke was great. I loved it. That was a good way, really strong attention grabber. This isn't just for you. I'm asking the room, also you. Not everyone gets a penny. That's okay. But what could you do to alleviate some of the real tension felt from those that didn't get it? How could you harness that? Use it or alleviate it, something. Like have someone maybe give it, like something, right? Like have us change something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, really, to try and like alleviate some of that, incorporate and use this more, right? It was one quick little pun in the beginning. Great, by the way, really good, still good. But use it again. Do a callback to it at the end. Have us give it to someone else or something. Yes. Yeah. Something about giving us 2 cents would be great. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Any other thoughts with what you could do with a penny for those that did or did not get it?
Is there anyone? Sorry. That could have been a great metaphor for like everyone needs to change their coin. Like something got a penny, and something that it might change, other people may not.
Change doesn't happen every month.
There you go. More
Sometimes
puns.
change doesn't make sense.
Oh, change adds up to $1. Here we go.
Yeah.
Not everyone hates change. Not maybe your grandma.
Some of us are chosen to manage the change.
Oh.
Some changes different, you can have different types of things.
Oh, wow.
All good points. These are gems. Good. Okay. I don't want to derail it any more than I already have. I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Listo. So everybody, today I'm going to talk about critical success factors. And quick overview of what the presentation is going to be about. We talk about what critical success factors are if nobody's familiar with the term. Why it's going to be important to you all as future IELTS psychologists, and a little bit of research done on critical success factors. So pretty much what critical success factors are variable circumstances necessary to elicit positive outcomes in specific programs or initiatives in developing organizations, or just saying organization in general. So when you're trying to develop these critical success factors, there are a couple key issues that you have to address first. So for those key issues, some of the key issues, one of the major key issues that has to be addressed is what issues is this specific organization facing? Why do you have to develop these critical success factors? What are some key variable factors that would impact the desired outcome of the program or initiative? Why do they want to input this program or initiative? And what are some tools or skills that must be acquired to reach each desired outcome in this organization? So examples of these critical success factors are training and education. So training and education is the most basic one. So it's basically just training and educating your employees on what your desired outcome is, how to reach that desired outcome, and what needs to be done to get there. The next one is quality and data reporting. So harnessing all this data as to figuring out ways to measure your training and education, if it's being implemented the right way and if it's going the right way. Management commitment. So commitment from your top management is always a plus, especially when you have HR initiatives that are being in place. It's always good to have top-down management commitment because a lot of people don't really like HR. And communication to improve quality. So talking in between yourselves as employees, having management communication from the top down to make sure they let you know what you're doing right, what's going wrong, and how to improve what you're doing. So before I go into some research done on CSFs, I want to talk to you guys about why it's important to you all as future biopsychologists to understand what CSFs are and how to implement them correctly. So as everybody here in this room wants to become a future biopsychologist, you all might one day be tasked with the job to go into an organization and create these CSFs. If an organization gives you this task like, hey, we're failing here, you have to know the ins and outs of that organization, the culture of the organization, what issues they're facing, what training needs to be done to get where they need to go, and how to get there. So some interesting research from this week's reading was Yost, 2014. In his research, he examined critical success factors that directly impact the implementation, sustainability, and overall success of an initiative, of an HR initiative. So some of the critical success factors that they examined were organizational characteristics, intervention characteristics, and change leader characteristics. So a key element of each of the CSFs they examined were top management support, which is pivotal in creating an initiative, alignment with business needs, and clear objectives, established and good communication from the top down. So what did they find? They pretty much found that CSFs in the HR initiative that they were researching were significant. That the overall success CSF played a role in overall success in implementing the HR initiative. But one major limitation they had was that they did these surveys and got the information right away. So they couldn't tell if these CSFs were going to have a long lasting effect in the future for this HR initiative. That's it. What did I do? I don't know. My presentation is kind of rushed. I shot myself in the foot, so it was probably my worst one yet. Will I improve on the next time? Memorize it and don't look back every 2 seconds. And slow it down and get a little more elaborate with the details and really go into it.
Wait, can you go back to what you did well?
Nothing really.
Because you just totally trashed yourself. So try that again. What did you do well?
Okay. What I did well, I used different PowerPoint this time. Instead of the same basic one I always use.
Okay.
So that's something I did well.
New template. Good.
New template. All right. Yeah. So a lot of improvements for next time. This is my last one, but for the next one we have to present. Having everybody's feedback really helps. I don't know. I think the first 3 people want to.
Me?
Yeah, sure.
I would agree with it. Probably wasn't your best one. And I think you started really strong, though. Like you're like, dude, I got this. I'm coming into this. It's last minute, but I'm going to do it. And I'm not sure what you lost a little bit of energy. But I like the content. I think it's important pieces of information. And I like that you called us to think about how we're going to implement it, right? Like you engaged us to say, hey, we want to do this. This is important. This is important because it's going to be what we're going to be doing, essentially. And here's what the research says about why it's important. So it's kind of called us all to get there. But that slide could be colored different.
Yeah, I know. I didn't when I made it looked different on my laptop, but then right off.
Yeah. But I think it was good. I think overall, not a bad job.
I think, so last time you told a really powerful story, and I think that was a really strong point in your presenting all the presentations I've seen. I think that this one would have been just supplemented so much better if you had maybe found a story that you could have interwoven with it to maybe help connect some points, maybe a time in your firefighting experience where you guys went through change and had to figure out something with that. But I think you've got a lot of really good stories in your history, and I think that that's a strength that you can come from.
going off of Ben's point, even if it was just a hypothetical situation, something that kind of makes us see the practical application of all the CSS, that would be my biggest point. Overall, it's good. And you say you don't memorize it, you did memorize it, but I felt like you really did.
I tried,
Yeah,
but when I get up here,
it goes, but I think you really did memorize it for the most part.
You seem
I tried.
yeah, you seem pretty knowledgeable about it, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is actually probably one of the research target accomplishments. I like it.
A couple things I would say, there are a couple spelling mistakes, so just make sure, go over that. It's important to slow down to a point at which you can clearly enunciate. Like, especially with some of the tongue twisters you wrote in for yourself.
My
Wow,
mouth is really dry.
how did all those words go together in a way that could be said comprehensively or easily would be difficult. So in any case, either write an easier script or find find a way to just slow it down with the way that you're speaking, what you're saying, so that you can say it without slip-ups in that way. I thought the content was really good. Additionally, I don't know about you could use a personal example, as Ben was suggesting. I think an organizational example would be really good. If you could fictionalize it, that's fine. Say this organization is struggling with this issue. A possible solution or path forward would be to do this, this, and this, right? X, Y, and Z. To find a way that you could help us solidify the complexity of the information you're talking about, to really drive that point home to you know what I mean? Like really make it memorable in that way. Because the content's good. It's technical.
Yeah.
Which, your audience is probably fine with. But not everyone has the attention span or attention to detail as your wonderful peers.
Right.
But I think you did a good job. I appreciated your just off the cuff ability to do a presentation on whatever preparation you did or didn't have. I don't know, but I think you did all right. Not bad. You're very hard on yourself. I think you did just fine.
Forward, just a quick question. Do you think that a memorized presentation is more effective than a presentation that knowing, like, is it better than not that, but maybe get to know the content? And
Yeah. So typically, when you're being coached, like to present on a large venue or something, they'll tell you to have a script of like 70%. Right? So you have some content that you're going to deliver and structure in which you're going to deliver it, but you can go off script, right? Plus or minus some degree, so that you give yourself a little bit more permission and you can move with the audience a little bit, incorporate a joke, a follow-up, callback, something, a reference to another presentation or person. So that tends to go over better and be actually easier to deliver as well.
I know there's a lot of people that try to memorize it.
It's hard. Yeah, it's not recommended. 100% memorization, no. It's quite hard. We don't get multiple takes like a movie or TV show. Yeah. Good question. But I think Brian, did he leave? Is he gone? Oh, well done. He'll see it in the video that we appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's up to you. I don't know if he'll come back or these people will come back and in the middle of your presentation.
Don't you have any pyrotechnics?
Oh, they could get burned. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's possible.
So I just thought, oh, there's the love.
Oh,
You're on right.
let me in. Yeah, maybe. The flaming Jades are talking. I wonder, Robert, if this penny could be construed as bribery for better presentation.
You're giving a gift, like
I said it was a physical gift, and I left you guys with a verbal gift.
Oh, okay.
And I did say, this is a representation of at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to understand if this is a technical gift.
Oh, yeah, take it. I'm not gonna ask for it back.
Okay, well,
Now that
I can't say that this will influence your grade in any way.
Now that I can say that people value pennies much more.
Yeah.
They value cheese much more than they have. Nobody ever cared about pennies until tonight.
Until it's this Dr. Seuss stars on Dars. You know, it's like a symbolic have and have not scenario. You created that. Okay, let's go.
Okay. Change everything except for your wife and children. This is something that the chairman of Samsung, Gunny Lee, said in 1993. He said it to increase the urgency for change. The urgency for change is even stronger in these days for organizations. They are facing difficult challenges that push them to be agile when facing those changes. The challenges are like this. The world, the environment that we are living in right now is evolving so quickly. The world we live in is changing so fast, so the environment is requiring the organizations to catch up. If they don't catch up, they will be left behind and fall. And another challenge that the organizations are facing is the constant introduction of disruptive technologies. So frequently, we can see so many different new technologies coming up, and those new technologies are demanding the organizations to adapt their strategy and system to those technologies. And also there's this accelerating digitization and democratization of information. Thanks to the development of IT, all kinds of information, they are easily available and accessible by everybody in the world at the same time. So in terms of informational resource, we are all equal. And also at last, so the new war for the talent, that's what the organizations are facing. In this fast-paced changing world, having great talent people who can learn fast and perform at their high level in organizations those people are necessary in organizations. And it's really hard to maintain and retain them in the organization. It's really competitive. But overcoming these challenges can be really difficult for some of the traditional organizations. Because the traditional organizations, they pursue stability. In their initial phases of growth, they go through some difficulties, uncertainties, and fluctuation. So they want stability. But once they get the stability, they also achieve efficiency. They become very efficient because they've been through some stuff before. They know how to deal with their customers. They know how to manage their people. Once they achieve both stability and efficiency, unfortunately, they also become very rigid. Being rigid means that they will become hard to change. And hard to change means that they will become slower to meet the different needs of their customers. For instance, let's say I'm an organization that sells this bottle of ice. And George here, he's been a loyal customer for over a decade. He's been buying a lot of this. But all of a sudden, he comes to me one day and then says, he needs water now. He's really thirsty now. He needs the water right now, now. So what am I going to do if I'm a traditional organization? Probably I'll just sit and wait for it to melt. Eventually it will become water. George can drink it later. It's going to take some time, but it will turn into water. But what if I'm an agile organization? I'll do everything to expedite this melting process. I'll find some way to melt it fast to give it to George so he can quench his thirst. So, being an agile organization, they pursue stability but also dynamism. They have network of teams that can learn fast, that can make decisions fast, who can utilize new technologies, and those who share the common goal. According to McKinsey and Company, having agility in organizations, it can bring many benefits, such as organizational health, which is positively related to long-term performance. Having agility also can provide the organizations with centricity of their customers. And also, they can enable the organizations to approach the market much faster. Agility can also increase the revenue growth of the company. And also, it can enable the workers to be more engaged. McKinsey and Company, they also conducted an interview of 2,500 business leaders and asked them about this concept of agility. And 3/4 of the participants, they said this concept of agility is one of the top 3 that's there in their mind. And also 40% of the participants, they said they're doing some kind of transformation in their organizations to adopt and implement this idea of agility. So as for us, who wants to be future biopsychologists, I believe knowing about this concept of agile organizations is very important because it's being really popular. Everybody wants it now. So I wish that all of us can be familiar with this idea of agility and become better change agents who can facilitate this idea into different organizations. Thank you. I think I did well with my PowerPoint. It was clean. Something I can improve next time. I was having a difficult time with the time management for this presentation. When I was practicing it, the first one went to like 10 minutes. And I kept practicing it today in the question paper. It was always like 8 minutes, and I think it might have gone over 7 minutes this time too. But yeah, I tried to cut a lot of things, still it was quite long, I think. And I didn't do as much practice as I did for the presentation before. So I think the selection of vocabulary, word terms, being more consistent throughout the presentation would be better if I had practice. And pick 3 people. Okay, I want Mark, Yao Chen, and James.
Okay. All right. Yeah. First up, a great use of humor in your book. I think you have great rhythm and timing for that. For the punchline. So yeah, that's 10. Yeah. Consider using more of these in your presentations. So good stage questions as always. It's been very consistent throughout all our presentations, and congrats to your final presentation. Right?
Yes.
Right, and I like the interesting hypothetical scenario where you present the ice. Yeah. But I wonder if there's any reference to that you could use in your presentation.
What
do you think?
So was having a really hard time relating this scenario throughout the entire presentation. I didn't utilize it a lot because in some cases I was thinking it may conflict with the idea of agile organization. Probably it's not the best fitting use of it, but that was all I got for this presentation. I just think of it.
I think it's fitting. Yeah. You don't have to overthink. Yeah, but I'd like to see more, more use. Yeah, a stronger connection between this scenario and your presentation. Yeah. And I like how you emphasize the importance of knowing agile presentation. Yeah, that kind of allows us, right, to pay attention to your presentation. And because the reason I say that is, seems like presentation sounds a bit flat to me. So it's like, but you know what? I would like to see the climax in the presentation. Maybe that would be, that would be a consideration. Yeah, but overall.
Thank you. James.
The other person.
So, first of all, I mean, you did an excellent job, and this is your third presentation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think this is one of your best presentations. And compared to the last two, you start to make eye contact to us, and you deliver more information. And yeah, I really like your example using the Explorer, and it helps build a connection with your audience, and it is a good combination with your content. Yeah.
Thank you.
I liked it. I mean, maybe because I was primed from when we met earlier, saying like, oh, I came up with this at 10 a.m. kind of thing. As like, oh, this is what I expect from you, right? Like that level that you've brought the last 2 weeks. I thought you did really well. I also liked your ice bottle connection to should we wait or should we do this? Kind of like thinking about how that relates. And I agree with Mark in the sense of it's very academic, informational kind of presentation, which I really like that kind of presentation. So if you wanted to, depending on the audience, maybe like Mark was saying, is that more pizzazz. And particularly at this slide, I felt myself drifting a little bit. And I'm pretty tired tonight, so that could just be me, not you. Yeah, overall, I think it was really well. I actually liked how you dressed today for it. Because maybe it is a pretty heavy subject, to some, so it kind of made it casual, like maybe like, okay, I can get this, what you're presenting, so, yeah. Thank you.
I liked the academic nature of it as well. The content was really concise but packed, right? It was very potent in the delivery. So you had a lot of really solid information that I think was really good. The last slide I thought hung for a long time, like on the screen. So some imagery of the concepts of what you were trying to convey at that time would be helpful. Because you're talking about a lot of data. It's not a good idea to put data on the screen, but some representation for us to have that, oh, I get the image for what the idea he's talking about would be helpful, right? Because I think it can be difficult to hold all of that information in your head for the audience and a first time through, right? You've gone through it many times over. We get to hear it once. So you have to kind of be in the mind of your audience a little bit in that. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, you're a very good presenter. I liked the intro. That was really strong. It was good. That's funny. Yeah,
That's not from me, this from the chair.
yeah, the chairman. The yeah, the chairman. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought the content was really good. The slides were really good. Your presentation was good. You went through the presentation really well, and you cited a lot of information that I thought, wow, that's impressive that you could do all that from memory. So I thought that was great without any cards or even that information wasn't on the screen either. So clearly it was all in your head, which is a skill to develop. You clearly have. So well done. I enjoyed it. Good job. So I want to say Aisha came to my class on Monday and lectured on social psychology. She absolutely killed it. I was super impressed by her, and I had that class this morning, and they all wanted me to convey to you how much they appreciated you. They really liked the class.
What did you teach on? Just social psychology in general, like an add a concept of it, or?
Stereotypes, prejudice, discrimination.
You know, easy stuff, real light stuff.
You think people really like talking about?
Right. And she made everybody talk. She would just like look at people and like, you look like you want to say something, and they would. It's like, wow, that was amazing. So good. It's so good.
Nice.
So today I'm talking about organizational strategy. Organizational strategy is a dynamic long-term plan that maps the route towards the realization of the company's goal and vision. So in that, you can take two paths. You can take an action path or a reflection path. An action requires that you change people or the processes within an organization. A reflection requires that you change your mindset. And changing mindsets are way harder than changing action or people. So we're going to talk about action tonight. So action requires 4 steps. It requires diagnosing the problem. It requires action planning, intervention, and evaluation, which ultimately turns out to be a strategic plan. So in the diagnosing of organizational strategy, you look at the mission, the vision, the climate of the organization, and everything, policy. So this past year, I served as the president and CEO of a statewide student organization that was incorporated as a 501c3 in 2015. This student organization had nothing except for a board of 36 students who graciously volunteered their time. No professional staff, a minimum budget of like $60,000. And so when I came into the position, or was elected into the position, the organization was in turmoil. Statewide leadership, administrative leadership was like, we're gonna shut this organization down if it isn't changed. So with that, I knew there was a lot of problems, but when you are in charge of an organization, you can't just be based on your opinions of something, you go to your stakeholders. So in diagnosing the problems, I brought in an external consultant for an outside view. I hosted regional town halls throughout the state. I constantly met with my executive team, and then I picked a handful of statewide student leaders from across the thing and all different focus groups to diagnose the specific things within the organization. And so those look like the first and biggest one was, you don't have any money to operate. And if you don't have any money, can't really do anything, right? So that moved into action planning. So in order for this organization to become sustainable, there had to be plans of action. So the first thing, the biggest concern was there's no money. So in that, the first thing that I had to do in order for the strategic plan to encompass everything, which the strategic plan is typically, if done right, 3 to 5 years. It could be completed in one, but I wanted to make it a 5-year plan, so it wasn't quickly, but, so the first thing was get a stable funding source for the student senate. So I lobbied legislators to change ed code, which is no easy feat. So changing ed code so that a fee can be implemented on all community college campuses to contribute $1 to the statewide student senate, which means that with a capacity of 2.1 million students, plus you have an annual budget of 4 million. So that was the first thing. So that was the first thing that needed to happen so that everything else can happen. So that was a success. The governor signed that into legislation. So with that, everything else went into it. So after that, you have the intervention, which means you change steps, you monitor the process, and then you get your stakeholders involved to committing to this change, which meant changes like a reduction to the board size, changes in what you spend money on, changes in travel policies and implementing the policies in XYZ. And from your intervention, you go on to evaluation. And in your evaluation stage, you just reinforce all the change that you've made so that you know that it's working. And with that, it is not the plan that is important, it's the planning. That's so, what I did well, I think I did well with my slides, but it's kind of weird with Canva, it like make you download the PDF and couldn't do anything else. So next time I'll try to do like a PowerPoint so I can refix that. And also preparing a bit more and yeah, preparation, preparing. 3 people to give feedback. I'm gonna go with Brenda, Marina, and Ray.
So you are a fantastic presenter. Like I'm all the way in the back and hearing you. I heard every word you said. And then the second thing was your experience. That was so impressive. So what if you had made your presentation around that as like a case study to really drive home the point? That would have been that. I want to hear more. I want to hear a whole lot. I want to hear the whole story.
Yes, that was awesome. You making the best out of just being able to scroll, and it was good to see how you kept your composure for that. And I actually felt like it was very informational, like that I could use this information. And I appreciate you sharing your experience. That was helpful to follow along. It was a great story. That was very interesting. So thank you for that. But yeah, it was great to see like you with confidence. And I hope I can learn from you, and I enjoy hearing you.
You're awesome. I think this presentation showed all of us a new side of you. Because I don't think any of us maybe knew that story completely, or maybe we've heard bits and pieces, but because I knew you were in student organizations and stuff, but like that was a whole level. That exceeded any of my expectations, like of what I thought you were involved in. That's really like powerful stuff to hear that a peer of mine is making that kind of change. So thank you. And that really illustrated your point. If you didn't have that story, I don't know if we would have been able to walk through that process. So that was really awesome to see. So thank you.
Do you know what the current bank account of that student organization?
Oh yeah, like you want like what? So when I left being president, was like 279,000.
Okay, and they're accruing more money over time because of the new legislation?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what the projected?
So this coming, so it's like a cycle, but the money that will hit the account this cycle, it's like probably like 300 grand, but then in 2021, like 2.4 million.
I think you are overly humble. I don't know, has anyone here raised a couple $1 million? Anybody?
Raised? No.
What else have you done with a couple million? Raised? No. Seen? No. Experienced? No. No, but it like that. You alluded to it in your story, but I would love to hear what that meant, what that will mean. Contextualize what your actions have done for the students. Is this just in California or throughout the US?
Just in California.
Just in California. That's an amazing amount of money.
Just California.
That's incredible though. Like I'm just thinking economically, like that's a ton of money for just the state. I thought it was nationally. Wow. Yeah, you downplayed that too much. Way too much. I think that was incredible. And I think it would be, it gives more gravitas to like, okay, like listen to me. I've gone through this, I've walked through this. The impact that I'm going to have or that this will have, my actions over time are tremendous. That's great. Contextualize it in that way, right? Like give us some idea of the magnitude of what we're talking about. How many lives does that touch? 2.1, or was it 2.1 million students in the system? That's a lot of people. Like that's incredible. So I think that would, and it doesn't have to be from a place of arrogance or anything. It's not something like, hey, look at me, I'm amazing. It's more so, these are the facts. This was the process. The ramifications of this over time will likely look like this. Right? It will give a voice to this group. It will give organization and structure and guidance and opportunity and all sorts of levers that they can now pull that they couldn't have before, right? Like if you don't have the money or a budget for it, you can't do anything. So in that way, I thought the presentation could have been better with a little less humility, oddly enough. I think it was awesome. You're a very good presenter. You come with a lot of confidence, a lot of experience, and that's great. It's great to hear all of the capacity that you have. I think, like Ray was saying, we may not be aware, and I'd like to hear more. Thank you very much.
So while I set this up, I'd like you guys all to stand up and stretch a little bit. I had to start. You can sit whenever you Actually, if you guys want to take a break, it's Mark just
Break? Okay.
My time.
So my perspective